Welcome on board, chosen one. Let's not pretend this is a coincidence. Let's not water it down. Something changed, and everyone felt it. The same people who once laughed, dismissed you, talked slick behind your back, or said they'll never make it, are suddenly quiet. Not peaceful quiet, nervous quiet. The kind of silence people fall into when a plan fails and nobody wants to admit it out loud. Remember what they said back then. They're nothing special, overrated, they'll burn out. Funny how confident they were when you were struggling. Funny how loud they were when you were bleeding in private. And now, look who's whispering. Look who's watching from a distance. Look who suddenly needs proof, data, confirmation, validation. Oh, the legends need to bow now. When they said you were predictable, they were wrong. When they said you'd fold, they miscalculated. When they said you needed them, that one really backfired. Here's the cold fact they can't escape. You didn't announce your comeback. You didn't brag. You didn't explain. You just changed. And that silence after the storm, that awkward space where nobody knows how to treat you anymore, that's not imaginary. That's the aftermath of a quiet win. That's the sound of people realizing they underestimated the wrong person. Behind closed doors, the energy is different. Your name comes up and conversations stall, screens get tilted, notes get taken. Someone says, pull their history. Someone else says, that doesn't make sense. They replay your past choices, your old messages, your timeline, trying to find the moment you broke pattern. Because that's what scares them. You didn't just improve, you escaped the script. They tried watching from afar. That didn't work. They tried copying you. That failed too. So now they're doing the unthinkable. Hiring investigators, analysts, profile builders, people whose literal job is to figure people out. Imagine being so unsettling that strangers are paid to understand why you move the way you move. That's not obsession. That's panic with a budget. And before we go deeper, press the like button and subscribe, not as a favor, as payment, because messages like this don't travel unless you push them forward, and you're part of this mission, whether you admit it or not. Let's be honest about the pain point, because this wasn't a smooth journey. You paid for this awareness, with isolation, with being misunderstood, with being labeled difficult, cold, arrogant, weird, intense. You watched people switch on you the moment you stopped explaining yourself. You felt the loneliness of outgrowing rooms that once felt safe, and still you kept going. That's the part nobody wants to talk about. The universe didn't hand you strength. It tested you until strength was the only option left. Here's what they're really investigating: not your success, not your confidence, not even your silence. They're studying 3 things about you that shouldn't exist together, and yet here you are, walking proof that the rule book was wrong. First, your emotional control. You feel deeply, but you don't leak. You don't explode on command. You don't react the way they expect. In a world addicted to emotional chaos, your calm is disturbing. They poke you, provoke you, bait you, and you don't give them the show. That drives them insane. People can manipulate emotions. They can't manipulate restraint. Second, your pattern-breaking mind. You don't move in straight lines. You disappear, then reappear stronger. You pause when others rush. You act when others freeze. Every model they run on you fails because you don't repeat cycles the way most people do. They can't predict you, and anything unpredictable becomes a threat to systems built on control. Third, and this is the one that really terrifies them, you don't need validation to move forward. You don't wait for applause. You don't need permission. You don't collapse when ignored. That kind of independence is rare, and when it shows up, institutions notice, groups notice, enemies notice. because people who don't need approval can't be steered. Think back. There was a time when you were underestimated so badly it almost felt insulting. They thought they had you figured out. They thought your limits were obvious. And now they're combing through your past, trying to locate the version of you they understood, because the current one doesn't fit anywhere in their logic. This isn't about ego. This is about position. You're standing in the aftermath of a battle you didn't even announce. The smoke cleared, and somehow you're still standing, calmer than before. That contrast is what breaks them. Their effort versus your ease, their noise versus your silence, their meetings versus your momentum. And here's the villain truth nobody else dares to say. You were never meant to be understood by them. You were meant to be studied after it was too late. The universe doesn't repeat anomalies, it observes them. They're hiring investigators because deep down they know something irreversible happened. The version of you they could control is gone. The version they could predict is buried. And the one that remains? That one doesn't ask for entry. That one doesn't explain. That one just moves forward while the world scrambles to catch up. Stay still, let them watch, let them spend. You already won the moment they stopped laughing and started investigating. And now pause for a second, chosen one, because this is the line where people who are just curious fall off, and people who know something is happening to them stay glued. If this message feels uncomfortably accurate, if it feels like someone cracked open a file they were never supposed to see, that's not hype. That's recognition. The universe has a funny way of pulling the right eyes to the right moment, and if you're still here, you already know this isn't random content. Before we break down the 3 exact things about you that pushed them to hire private investigators, lock yourself into this moment. Hit the like button and subscribe, not for numbers, but as a signal. A signal that you're not just watching, you're stepping into awareness. Every time this message spreads, it weakens the silence they rely on and strengthens the people who were underestimated. And if you really want to anchor yourself here, drop a comment with 777, not as superstition, not as decoration, but as a marker. A marker that says you're ready to face why people are watching you, why patterns keep breaking around you, and why your presence alone is enough to trigger scrutiny. Now, here's the warning they won't give you. Once you understand these 3 things, you can't unsee them. You'll recognize past moments instantly. The reactions, the sudden distance, the quiet monitoring. And if you truly are who this message is for, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very last second. Now, let's break it down, step by step, and expose exactly what's happening. Number 1, you stayed in plain sight and still broke their ability to read you. They can see you, they just can't touch you. That's the part that makes them spiral. Here's the exposed truth they don't want to say out loud. You didn't disappear, you didn't hide, you didn't retreat into the shadows like they expected. You stayed visible. You showed up, you walked into rooms, you posted, you spoke, you made eye contact, and somehow, while doing all of that, you became completely unreadable. That wasn't an accident, that was evolution under pressure. This is where their confidence collapsed. Their whole advantage in life comes from reading people. They watch tone shifts, micro-expressions, patterns, emotional leaks. They listen for insecurity hiding inside jokes. They wait for desperation to slip out through over-explaining. With most people, it's easy. Humans leak information constantly. Their fears spill into captions. Their needs show up in texts. Their intentions bleed through posture and pacing. You stopped leaking. That's the first ability that changed everything. You learned how to exist without advertising your inner world. You didn't become fake. You didn't become cold. You became contained. And that difference matters more than they're willing to admit. They look at your face and can't place the emotion. Not because you're blank, but because you're regulated, calm, grounded. They hear your words and can't find the hook. No begging, no proving, no hidden agenda. You answer questions clearly, yet somehow they walk away knowing less about you than before. That messes with people who are used to control. Here's what hurts their ego the most. You're not mysterious on purpose, you're just no longer performing. You stopped explaining yourself to feel safe. You stopped narrating your pain so others would stay. You stopped turning your inner life into public property. And when that happened, their access expired. They go back and study your old posts. They scroll your history like it's a crime scene. They compare the version of you who used to overshare with the one who now speaks only when it matters. They're hunting for the crack, the tell, the weakness. And what they find scares them more than insecurity ever did. They find consistency, self-trust, stillness. Most people confuse being open with being honest. You learned the difference. You're honest but selective, present but not exposed, warm but not available for manipulation. That's a frequency shift, and people who operate on control-based systems feel it immediately. You probably noticed the reactions before you understood the cause, the way conversations changed, the way people asked more questions but got less information, the way some got uncomfortable around you for no clear reason, the way others suddenly became obsessed with figuring you out. That's not curiosity, that's loss of leverage. Because when someone can't read you, they can't steer you. They can't predict your reactions. They can't play emotional chess 3 moves ahead. You're no longer a pattern they can exploit. You're a variable they can't solve. Here's the part they hate hearing. You didn't do this by learning tricks. You did it by surviving. You were misunderstood long enough that you stopped needing to be understood. You were disappointed enough times that you stopped explaining yourself to feel secure. The universe didn't reward you with this ability. It forced it out of you. They keep asking the same question in private. Is this an act? They want it to be a mask, because masks can be removed. What they're slowly realizing is that this isn't an act. This is alignment, and alignment can't be negotiated with. You're not hiding behind a wall, you're standing behind glass. They can see you clearly, they can feel your presence. They just can't reach in and rearrange you anymore. That's why your calm feels threatening. That's why your silence feels loud. That's why your neutrality makes them nervous. People who rely on reading emotions to feel powerful don't know what to do with someone who feels deeply but doesn't leak. You still care, you still feel, you just don't broadcast it. That balance is rare, and rare things get studied. This answers a question many of you have been carrying quietly. Why do they keep watching even when I'm not doing anything? Because you broke their model. You exist without feeding the system that once fed on you. No drama, no explanation, no collapse, just presence. And here's the gut punch they won't recover from. You're not unreadable because you're guarded. You're unreadable because you're whole. There's nothing missing for them to pull on. No emotional debt. No need for approval, no fear of being misunderstood. That level of internal closure short-circuits people who survive by staying needed. That's why the first investigator got hired, not because you were hiding something, because you weren't. You were fully visible and still untouchable. And in a world that survives by decoding and controlling others, that combination feels illegal. Let them study, let them scroll, let them analyze screenshots and tone shifts. The more they look, the clearer it becomes. You didn't disappear, you transcended access. And once access is gone, control dies with it. Number 2, they broke you on purpose and accidentally forged a weapon. Pain was supposed to end you, instead it upgraded you. That's the moment their curiosity turned into fear. This is where things stopped being interesting for them and started becoming alarming, because anyone can be watched, anyone can be studied, but when someone keeps getting hit and comes back sharper every time, the tone in the room changes. This is the second ability that made them stop smirking and start whispering. You didn't just survive pain, you metabolized it. Here's the rule they live by. Pain weakens people. Betrayal fractures trust. Loss destabilizes identity. Sabotage knocks confidence off its axis. That's how the system is built. Hurt someone enough, and they fold. Hurt them publicly, and they shrink. Hurt them repeatedly, and they break themselves for you. You didn't. Every betrayal that was supposed to cripple you turned into leverage. Every rejection that was meant to humble you sharpened your standards. Every time they tried to isolate you, you learned how to stand alone without collapsing. That's not motivation talk. That's adaptation. That's biology. That's evolution happening in real time, and they were not prepared to witness it. They remember the moments clearly, the knife in the back that came from someone you trusted, the opportunity that vanished because someone whispered lies, the sudden silence when you needed support. They expected fallout, tears, chaos, a visible breakdown they could point at and say, "See, we were right." Instead, you went quiet. That silence confused them at first. Silence is usually denial or collapse. With you, it was processing. You weren't spiraling, you were reorganizing, like a system going offline not to fail, but to update. Imagine this. Someone pours poison into your bloodstream, expecting you to weaken. Instead, your body studies it, neutralizes it, and then stores the formula so it can never hurt you again. The next time they try the same trick, it doesn't work. That's what you did with pain. You didn't numb it. You didn't romanticize it. You learned from it. That wasn't survival. That was conversion. That's the line they don't want to say. They watched you go through things that emotionally hospitalized other people, public humiliation, private betrayal, long stretches of being misunderstood and unsupported. And every time you came back different, not colder, not bitter, just stronger in ways that made them uncomfortable. Here's what really broke their confidence. You didn't turn angry. Angry people are predictable. You didn't turn vengeful. Revenge can be anticipated. You didn't even turn defensive. You turned efficient. Your decisions got cleaner. Your tolerance got lower. Your focus sharpened. You stopped wasting energy on people who showed you exactly who they were. Pain taught you boundaries faster than any advice ever could. That's not trauma. That's refinement. They tried to explain it away. They're faking it. They're suppressing. It'll catch up to them. But time kept passing, and instead of collapsing, you kept expanding. That's when concern entered the picture. Imagine this: a blacksmith keeps striking a blade, expecting it to crack. Instead, the blade keeps taking shape, becoming sharper, more balanced, more dangerous. At some point, the blacksmith realizes the strikes aren't weakening it. They're perfecting it. That's when the hammering stops and the fear starts. They didn't realize they were training you. That's the quote that stings the most. You didn't do this with some secret method. There was no ritual, no hack, no special technique they could steal. That's what frustrates them. They can't replicate refusal. They can't copy resilience built under fire. You simply made a decision over and over again to not let pain turn you small. You felt it, you processed it, you extracted the lesson, then you rebuilt, stronger each time. And yes, a question starts forming in their minds, and maybe in yours too. Doesn't all that pain leave scars? Here's the truth they don't understand. Scars don't weaken tissue, they reinforce it. Scar tissue exists because the body refuses to die the same way twice. Imagine touching a hot stove once. Pain teaches faster than words. You don't need to relive the burn to remember the lesson. That's what you did emotionally. You learned once, deeply, and never repeated the same mistake. This is why they started bringing in outside eyes, analysts, observers, people trained to decode human behavior. They needed to know how someone could take consistent hits and not internalize the damage. Because if more people learned to do what you do, entire systems would lose control. Pain was the test. You were the anomaly. They replay your timeline looking for collapse points. They circle moments where you should have quit. They underline incidents that should have broken your confidence, and every time the data comes back wrong. You didn't shrink, you recalibrated. Imagine a city hit by a storm. Some buildings crumble, others remain standing but weakened. Then there's the structure that absorbs the impact and becomes the safest place in the city afterward. That's what repeated adversity did to you. It reinforced your foundation. Here's the motivation they never meant to give you. Every attempt to sabotage you accidentally trained you for higher pressure. Every betrayal forced you to rely on yourself. Every loss stripped away illusions. You didn't become powerful despite the pain. You became powerful because you refused to waste it. This answers another silent question. Why do they seem uneasy when I succeed now? Because your success doesn't look fragile. It looks permanent. It's built on tested ground. They know how to deal with confidence built on praise. They don't know how to deal with confidence built on survival. You're not proof that pain makes people stronger. You're proof that pain reveals who was already capable of becoming stronger. That distinction matters. They need to understand you because you violate their expectations. You are walking evidence that damage doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it concentrates. You weren't lucky, you were tempered. And that's why this second ability pushed them from watching to investigating. Anyone can be hurt. Anyone can be betrayed. Very few people can take that energy and turn it into clarity, restraint, and power. You didn't become heartless. You became precise. You didn't harden. You stabilized. And now, every time they look at you, they're reminded of a mistake they can't undo. They tried to break you. They succeeded. They just didn't realize they were breaking you into something sharper. Number 3, you walked out of their heads without moving an inch. You didn't leave the room, you left their control. That's the realization that finally broke them. This third ability is what pushed them from confusion into full panic. You didn't disappear the dramatic way people usually do. No announcements, no cutting everyone off, no scorched earth exit. You stayed right where you were, living your life, breathing the same air, moving through the same spaces. And yet, somehow, you were gone from their world completely. That's what they can't process. You're no longer part of their gossip loops, their theories, their little games. Your name doesn't give them leverage anymore. You're not reacting. You're not explaining. You're not orbiting their opinions. You simply stopped existing inside their narrative, and that's terrifying to people who survive by staying relevant in others' minds. Most people who become unreadable turn cold. You didn't. Most people who grow from pain get loud about it. You didn't. Most people who disappear do it by isolating themselves. You didn't. You broke every pattern they rely on. You stayed warm, human, and present while quietly revoking access. Imagine this. A door that used to open for them suddenly isn't there anymore. No lock, no sign, just gone. They're standing in the same hallway, confused, touching walls, wondering if they imagined ever having entry at all. That's what you did psychologically. They watch you succeed but can't find desperation. They watch you connect but can't find manipulation. They watch you smile and can't find performance. That's when the questions start. How are they doing this? Why don't they care? Why doesn't anything we do reach them anymore? You didn't block them, you outgrew the channel. This is why investigators came in, because people who disappear without bitterness, without isolation, without collapsing, don't fit the data. You're still joyful, still loving, still engaged with life, just not with them. That separation without hostility is what makes you untouchable. Imagine a radio station you used to tune into every day. One day, the signal is just static. The station still exists, you just can't reach it anymore. That's you now. They're left watching from the outside, trying to understand how someone can stay fully alive while being completely unavailable to control. And here's the final gut punch. You didn't vanish to punish them. You vanished because they no longer mattered. That's not avoidance, that's victory. Number 4, you didn't fight them. You erased their entire advantage. When power can't touch you, it doesn't scream, it panics. That's the moment everything collapsed for them. This is the combined effect they were never prepared for. One change would have been manageable, 2 would have been uncomfortable, but all 3 together, that removed every single tool they rely on to dominate people. You didn't resist their power, you made it unusable. When you became unreadable, you killed prediction. They couldn't anticipate your reactions, your moves, your emotions. No forecast means no control. Their favorite weapon went dead overnight. Guessing is not power, and they hate guessing. When you turned pain into power, you erased fear. Fear is how they keep people small. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. They hit you with everything they had, expecting fear to settle in. Instead, you adapted. Fear stopped working on you, and once fear fails, manipulation follows it into the grave. And when you disappeared from their narrative while staying visible, that was the execution blow. You removed relevance. They could no longer provoke you, define you, or use you as a reference point. You existed outside their stories, outside their gossip, outside their mental grip. People who can't make you care have nothing left. You didn't escape the cage, you made it irrelevant. This is why investigators keep coming back with nothing. No leverage points, no pressure zones, no emotional handles, just the same unsettling conclusion. You're not broken, you're not hiding, you're not resisting. You're simply no longer compatible with the system they use to control others. Imagine a chess player sitting at the board, confident, experienced, ruthless. Then, suddenly realizing the opponent isn't playing chess anymore. Same board, same pieces, entirely different game. That's the panic you triggered. They needed you predictable, you became fluid. They needed you afraid, you became grounded. They needed you relevant to their world. You exited it without leaving. And here's the part they can't reverse. Growth doesn't negotiate. Evolution doesn't go backward. You refused the role they wrote for you, and now they're stuck acting in a play that lost its lead character. You didn't take their power. You made it useless. Number 5. Case file closed. They labeled you untouchable and walked away. The most dangerous person isn't the loudest one, it's the one you can't move. That's how their final report reads between the lines. This is where it ends for them. Not with victory, not with understanding, with retreat. After all the watching, tracking, analyzing, and quiet panic, every assessment came back saying the same thing in different words. You can't be bent. You can't be baited, you can't be controlled, and worse for them, you don't even want anything from them. That last part is what sealed it. They expected trauma to explain your detachment. It didn't. They expected arrogance to explain your distance. Wrong again. You weren't dissociating, you weren't numbing out, you were choosing peace over reaction, clarity over chaos, direction over drama. That kind of detachment isn't damage, it's discipline. Subject shows immunity to manipulation while maintaining genuine connection. Read that slowly. That sentence alone breaks their models. Imagine trying to grab smoke with your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. That's what you became to them. Present, visible, undeniable, and completely out of reach. You can love without attachment. You can connect without dependency. You can walk away without bitterness. That combination makes you unownable. They searched for leverage everywhere: old wounds, relationships, desires, fear points. Nothing stuck, because leverage only works when someone needs something and you don't. That's the conclusion they couldn't escape. You're not driven by approval. You're not moved by threat. You're not motivated by revenge. You're self-directed, and systems built on control collapse when they meet someone self-directed. No weaknesses discovered. Recommendation: disengage. That's not strategy, that's surrender. Imagine a predator realizing the prey doesn't run, doesn't freeze, and doesn't fight. It simply walks away, unharmed. The hunt ends immediately, not out of mercy, but out of futility. Here's the final truth they never wanted to document. You didn't become untouchable by trying. You became untouchable by becoming complete. They didn't lose interest. They lost access. Case closed. Subject untouchable. Number 6. They pulled out because you couldn't be turned against yourself. Their last move is always the same: make you doubt you. And that's exactly where they lost. This is the part the final report didn't spell out directly, but everyone involved understood it. They didn't disengage just because they couldn't control you. They disengaged because their most reliable weapon failed completely. You couldn't be turned inward. You couldn't be made to attack yourself. That's how they usually win. They don't need to destroy people directly. They just plant questions, subtle ones. Are you sure you're right? Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you're too much. Maybe you imagined it. They let people spiral on their own while pretending to be innocent observers. Most people do the rest of the damage themselves. You didn't. You didn't start self-sabotaging. You didn't start apologizing for existing. You didn't rewrite your own memories to make others comfortable. When doubt was offered, you examined it calmly and discarded what wasn't true. That short-circuited the entire operation. Imagine trying to light a fuse that's already wet. No spark, no burn, no explosion, just frustration. That's what their narratives became when they hit your mind. You stopped asking permission to trust yourself. That's the quote that ended the game. They pushed pressure, expecting cracks. None came. They tried silence, expecting insecurity. You used it as clarity. They tried comparison, hoping envy would creep in. You stayed grounded. Every tactic depended on one thing you no longer gave them: self-doubt. This answers the question many of you feel but don't say out loud. Why did the attacks suddenly stop? Why did the energy shift so fast? Because once they realized you wouldn't turn on yourself, continuing became pointless. A person who trusts their own perception is immune to psychological warfare. Imagine shouting insults at a mirror that doesn't reflect them back. That's how it felt dealing with you. Nothing stuck, nothing echoed, nothing multiplied. Here's the scary truth for them. You don't need to be defended. You don't need to be convinced. You don't need to be saved from yourself. That independence makes manipulation impossible. They didn't retreat because you were aggressive. They retreated because you were solid. And when a person becomes solid inside, the war ends quietly, not with a fight, with abandonment. That's why they panicked. That's why they walked away. Number 7, the silent rule. You broke. You don't need to win to walk away. Their worst fear isn't losing, it's being abandoned mid-game. That's the rule you broke, and it shattered them. This is where their logic fully collapsed. You didn't chase closure, you didn't demand apologies, you didn't wait for validation, justice, or a final scene where everyone admits you were right. You walked away while the game was still running. And to people who live on reactions, that's psychological murder. They needed you to need the outcome, needed you angry, needed you explaining, needed you proving something, because as long as you were invested, they still had relevance, still had leverage, still had a role. You didn't give them that ending. You exited without resolution. That's not weakness, that's power they can't replicate. Imagine playing chess with someone who suddenly stands up, leaves the room, and never looks back. No checkmate, no handshake, no reaction. The board stays frozen forever. Every unfinished move becomes a reminder that they didn't matter enough to finish with. That's what you did to them. You didn't win their game, you invalidated it. This answers the quiet question you felt creeping in. Did I give up too soon? Did I let them off easy? No. You denied them the only reward they wanted, your emotional participation. Revenge gives closure. Closure gives peace. Silence gives obsession. They replay conversations in their heads because you never concluded them. They rewrite scenarios because you never confirmed their importance. You left them holding questions they'll never get answered. Most people leave loudly, blocking, explaining, announcing boundaries. You didn't. You simply stopped showing up where nothing was being built. That's not avoidance, that's discernment. People who survive on reaction can't tolerate indifference. Loss can be explained. Defeat can be rationalized. Being irrelevant cannot. You didn't storm out. You didn't slam doors. You faded from the game while standing fully in your life. And that quiet exit, that's the one thing they'll never recover from. Number 8. They stopped chasing you, but they never stopped looking. They didn't walk away because they were done. They walked away because they were shaken. That's the difference. This is the question chosen ones feel in their gut. If they disengaged, why do I still feel eyes on me? Why the random check-ins, the quiet watching, the sudden interest months later? Here's the answer they won't admit. You didn't just escape. You broke something. And broken systems keep staring at the proof. They stopped engaging because engagement failed. But observation, that never stops. Not out of hope, out of disbelief. Imagine a prison guard watching someone walk through a wall. No alarm, no explosion, just a clean exit where none should exist. The guard doesn't chase. He freezes. Then he watches the wall for weeks, convinced it must have been a glitch. That's you. You became the glitch they can't unsee. They peak because they're waiting for collapse, waiting for confirmation that what happened wasn't real. Waiting for you to spiral, fail, or crawl back. Because if you don't, it means the system lies, and systems hate being exposed. You didn't just leave, you proved it was possible. That's the danger. They scroll quietly, ask about you indirectly, notice your absence more than your presence, not because they want you back, but because your continued stability threatens their worldview. If you can exit without punishment, others might realize they can too. This answers another silent question. Why does it feel like they care now when they didn't before? Because distance reveals impact. You were background noise when you were available. You became a case study when you left intact. Imagine a fire alarm that goes off once, stops, and never explains why. No damage, no smoke, just proof that something triggered it. Everyone keeps glancing at the ceiling afterward. That's the energy around you now. They don't monitor you to control you anymore. They monitor you to reassure themselves. And every day you stay grounded, calm, and moving forward without them, that reassurance fails. You're not being watched because you matter to them. You're being watched because you worked, and that's something they can never afford to ignore. Number 9, the moment the current flipped, life stopped pushing back. When you stop forcing doors, the right ones start opening by themselves. That's when the shift happened. You felt it before you could explain it. Things didn't get loud or flashy, they got clean. Timelines aligned without stress. Situations ended without explosions. Problems that used to chase you suddenly missed you by inches. Not because you planned better, because you stopped swimming upstream. This wasn't a miracle, it was momentum. The universe responds differently when someone stops fighting themselves. When you release the need to prove, convince, or chase, resistance disappeared. Doors that once felt heavy closed quietly. Doors you didn't even knock on cracked open. Missed calls turned out to be dodged disasters. Delays saved you from places you shouldn't have been. You didn't get lucky, you got aligned. Imagine stepping off a treadmill you've been sprinting on for years, only to realize the ground beneath you moves forward on its own. That's what changed. You weren't lazy. You were done wasting energy on friction. Enemies felt this shift immediately, even if they couldn't name it. Things started going wrong for them at the same time. Things got lighter for you, not punishment, contrast. They kept forcing outcomes. You stopped. They carried chaos. You dropped it. You didn't rise. You stopped sinking. That's why your life feels quieter but stronger. Less drama, fewer emergencies, more right place, right time moments that don't need explanation. When you left the old game, the universe stopped testing you in the same way. This answers the question you might be asking yourself. Why does everything feel calmer now, even though I'm doing more? Because effort and struggle aren't the same thing. You're moving forward without resistance. Imagine a river. The moment you stop fighting the current, it carries you faster than your arms ever could. Meanwhile, the ones still thrashing. They're exhausted, bitter, and confused, watching you drift past without effort. Life didn't start protecting you because you asked. It did because you finally stopped standing in your own way. And once that happens, things don't just improve, they rearrange. Number 10. The file they never share. Do not provoke this type. Some people aren't threats because they attack. They're threats because nothing works on them. That's the warning they keep off the record. This is where the villain smiles, because this part is never announced publicly. It's passed quietly. Side conversations, soft cautions, a raised eyebrow when your name comes up. You're not a method they can teach, not a formula they can copy. You're a result. And results like you don't come from training, they come from pressure. They can't recreate you because you weren't built in a classroom. You were shaped by contradiction, by being tested without guidance, by losing without collapsing, by standing alone long enough that dependence burned off naturally. Institutions don't know what to do with people like that, so they label them indirectly. Imagine a sign buried deep inside a restricted manual. No headline, no explanation, just a line that says, "Avoid unnecessary contact," not because you're dangerous in the obvious sense, but because engagement produces no leverage, no fear response, no obedience loop. You can't recruit what doesn't need you. That's the dread. They warn others quietly because you expose a flaw. If someone like you exists, it means their systems aren't absolute. It means compliance isn't guaranteed. It means escape is possible without destruction. That idea spreads faster than rebellion ever could. Imagine a stress test where one component refuses to fail. not dramatic, not defiant. It just keeps functioning. Engineers don't celebrate that. They isolate it, study it, then quietly tell others not to tamper with it. That's you. You don't lash out, you don't resist loudly, you don't play hero, you simply don't respond the way control expects. That immunity is unsettling, because once seen, it can't be unseen. They don't say your name with anger anymore, they say it with caution. And that's the highest form of respect they'll ever give. Number 11. You were never meant to be understood, only witnessed. Understanding was never the prize. Freedom was. That's the truth they never prepared you for. This is where it ends. Not with noise, not with victory speeches, not with applause. It ends with clarity, cold, clean, final. You were never put here to be decoded, explained, or agreed with. That was the trap. The moment you stopped needing to be understood, everything loosened its grip on you. Think about it. Every phase of pain you lived through came from the same root. Trying to be seen correctly, trying to be heard fairly, trying to be understood by people who benefited from misunderstanding you. That wasn't growth. That was imprisonment dressed up as connection. You don't owe anyone clarity anymore. Here's the part that stings the most for them. You didn't leave angry, you didn't leave loud, you didn't leave trying to teach a lesson, you left complete. That's what makes it irreversible. You didn't slam the door. You walked out and forgot the building existed. They wanted an explanation. You gave them absence. And absence does something explanations never can. It forces people to sit alone with their assumptions. Every story they told about you collapses when you're no longer there to react to it. Every label rots without your participation. Silence doesn't defend itself. It doesn't need to. This answers the final question some of you still carry quietly. Was I wrong for not explaining myself? For not fixing how they saw me? No. You were done auditioning for rooms that never planned to understand you anyway. You were meant to be witnessed, not dissected, not owned, not consumed. Imagine a storm that passes through a city. Some people chase it, trying to explain it. Others hide. A few simply watch it move on, knowing it was never meant to stay. That's who you became. A presence that arrives, shifts things, and leaves without permission. The villain doesn't stay to be celebrated. The villain doesn't wait for forgiveness. The villain exits when the work is done, and the work is done. You're not here to prove strength anymore. Your calm already did that. You're not here to justify distance. Your peace already explains it. You're not here to convince anyone of your value. People who needed convincing were never the audience. Those who needed answers were never entitled to them. That's the line you finally lived. Look at how different your life feels now. Less noise, fewer emotional emergencies, cleaner choices, stronger instincts. You didn't become smaller to survive. You became precise. You trimmed away everything that required explanation to function. This is why nothing they tried at the end worked. Guilt didn't work. Curiosity didn't work. Soft apologies didn't work. They were too late. Those tools only work on people still seeking approval. You already moved past that phase. You didn't harden. You stabilized. There's a difference. Hard people are brittle. They crack under pressure. Stable people absorb pressure and remain unchanged. That's what you are now. Unmovable, not because you resist, but because you no longer need to react. Imagine trying to push a mountain and realizing it doesn't push back, it doesn't fight, it doesn't argue, it simply stays where it is. That's the energy you carry now, quiet certainty, no performance. They'll tell stories about you for a long time, most of them wrong, some flattering, some bitter, none of them relevant. Stories are how people cope with things they can't control. You don't correct stories anymore, you outlive them. This is the final truth, and it's not dramatic. It's grounding. You were never meant to be fully understood, because full understanding creates ownership, and ownership was never your destiny. Movement was. You're here to keep going, untouched, unclaimed, unavailable to manipulation. You don't need witnesses anymore, but you'll have them anyway. And now, chosen one, this is where the curtain actually falls. Not with noise, not with drama, but with certainty. You didn't come this far to circle back, explain yourself, or reopen doors that already closed behind you. You're walking forward lighter, clearer, and untouched, and that's the real ending they never get to witness. If this message hit where it was supposed to, lock it in. Like the video, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop 77 in the comments if you're done shrinking and ready to keep moving.